President Trump is focused on getting this housing market booming again. The last 4 years has been terrible. This president understands real estate. He understands housing better than anybody.
Federal Housing Finance Agency Director William Pulte speaking with Maria on this program about the state of American homeownership. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent says that President Trump is now considering declaring a national housing emergency.
Think everyone's still rushing to buy homes in the U.S.? Not even close. Prices are stalling, buyers are vanishing, and some markets already look like ghost towns. But here's the twist. If you're not paying attention right now, you could end up trapped in a property that loses value fast, while smarter buyers and investors quietly reposition. In the next few minutes, we're breaking down the 9 states where the housing market is cracking first. These aren't distant risks. They're unfolding right now, and the people who move early will avoid the pain and spot the opportunities others miss. Stay with me, because number 1 on this list will shock you. Number 9. Maine. Picture this. Lobster boats bobbing in picturesque harbors, while for sale signs multiply like weeds across the Pine Tree State. With just over 1.3 million residents scattered across 35,000 square miles, this isn't just sparse. It's economically unsustainable for a modern housing market. The numbers tell a brutal story. Home sales dropped 38% in the last quarter alone, according to Maine Real Estate Association data. The median home price of $320,000 might seem reasonable until you realize the median household income is only $60,000. That's a price-to-income ratio that screams bubble territory. Here's the killer factor. The population is literally dying off. The state has the oldest median age in America at 45 years. Young people are fleeing faster than tourists leave after Labor Day. When your buyer pool is shrinking every single year, basic supply and demand economics becomes your worst enemy. The lobster industry, which employs thousands, is facing climate-related disruptions. Water temperatures are rising, forcing lobsters north into Canadian waters. This isn't temporary, it's permanent economic destruction. Tourism spikes for 3 months, then the state becomes an economic ghost town. Try selling a house when half your potential buyers disappear with the leaves. Heating costs are astronomical. We're talking average winter heating bills over $2,000. Property taxes average $3,000 annually, even on modest homes. When discretionary income evaporates, housing payments become impossible. Banks are already tightening lending standards specifically for properties here. Local credit unions report mortgage applications down 55% year over year. If you think this situation is bad, wait until you see what's happening in our next state. Number 8. New Hampshire. The live free or die state is about to learn what financial death looks like. With 1.4 million people crammed into 9,300 square miles, you'd expect housing demand to stay strong. You'd be wrong. Dead wrong. The housing market here is a perfect storm of disaster. The median home price hit $400,000, nearly double the national average. Meanwhile, property taxes are crushing homeowners at an effective rate of 1.17% annually. That's $4,700 per year on that median-priced home. For a state with no income tax, they're making up revenue by bleeding property owners dry. Here's the demographic death spiral nobody talks about. Young professionals are fleeing to Boston and New York faster than you can say tax advantage. The state's largest city, Manchester, has barely 100,000 residents. When your biggest urban center is smaller than most suburbs, economic growth becomes mathematically impossible. Manufacturing jobs, which form the backbone of the economy, are evaporating. Major employers like BAE Systems are automating or relocating. The unemployment rate might look decent on paper, but underemployment is rampant. People are working retail jobs who used to build aircraft components. Winter heating costs average $2,800 annually. Property insurance is skyrocketing due to severe weather events. Ice storms regularly knock out power for weeks. When your home becomes a financial liability instead of an asset, smart money runs. The inventory explosion is already starting. Homes that used to sell in 30 days are sitting for 6 months. Price reductions are becoming standard, not exceptional. Local realtors privately admit they're advising clients to get out now before the bottom falls out completely. Mortgage delinquencies increased 42% in the past year. Hold on to your wallet because our next state makes this look stable. Number 7. Vermont. Bernie Sanders' socialist paradise is about to become a capitalist nightmare for homeowners. With only 650,000 residents in the entire state, the housing market operates on life support. and someone's about to pull the plug. The median home price of $370,000 would be laughable if it weren't so tragic. We're talking about a state where the largest city, Burlington, has 45,000 people. That's smaller than most shopping mall parking lots. When your entire state has fewer residents than a single zip code in Phoenix, housing demand becomes a mathematical impossibility. The economy runs on three things: tourism, dairy farming, and wishful thinking. Dairy farms are closing at record rates, down 67% since 1990. Tourism is seasonal and increasingly dominated by day trippers who spend nothing on accommodation. The state's strict environmental regulations make new construction nearly impossible and existing home improvements a bureaucratic nightmare. Here's the demographic disaster. Vermont has the second oldest population in America. Young people leave for college and never return. The state university system bleeds talent to Boston, New York, and literally anywhere with actual job opportunities. When your population pyramid is inverted, housing demand collapses by basic mathematics. Property taxes average $4,200 annually on that median-priced home. State income tax hits 8.75% on middle-class earners. Sales tax adds another 6%. Heating costs during 8-month winters average $3,100. Insurance, maintenance, and utilities push total housing costs to unsustainable levels for most residents. The inventory surge is already visible. Homes listed in ski areas are sitting empty for entire seasons. Price cuts of 15 to 20% are becoming common. Local banks report mortgage applications down 63% compared to last year. But this state's problems pale in comparison to what's brewing in our next location, number 6, Nebraska. The Cornhusker state is about to get husked by economic reality, with 1.9 million people scattered across 77,000 square miles. The housing market depends entirely on agricultural commodity prices. And those are tanking faster than a John Deere tractor with no brakes. Agriculture employs directly or indirectly about half the state's workforce. When corn prices drop, everything else follows. Current corn futures are down 38% from their peak, and soybean prices aren't far behind. This isn't cyclical, it's structural. Climate change is making farming increasingly unreliable, while international trade tensions destroy export markets. The median home price of $300,000 might seem reasonable until you understand the income reality. The median household income of $65,000 barely covers basic living expenses when you factor in property taxes, insurance, and maintenance. Rural properties require septic systems, well water, and often their own electrical infrastructure. Hidden costs destroy affordability. Here's the killer. The state experiences 14 to 20 tornadoes annually. Insurance companies are either refusing coverage or charging premiums that make homeownership impossible for middle-class families. When State Farm and Allstate start redlining entire counties, smart money pays attention. Population flight is accelerating. The state's largest city, Omaha, is growing slightly, but rural areas are hemorrhaging residents. Small towns are literally disappearing. When your tax base evaporates, maintaining infrastructure becomes impossible. Roads crumble, schools close, and property values crater. Energy costs are brutal during winters that regularly hit -10 degrees. The electrical grid struggles during extreme weather events. When your home becomes an expensive survival shelter instead of a comfortable residence, demand disappears. Local banks report commercial real estate defaults increasing 85% year over year. Residential foreclosures lag commercial by 18 months historically. Before we move on, don't forget to subscribe. The biggest risks and opportunities in real estate are hitting right now, and missing even one update could cost you thousands. Stay ahead, hit subscribe, and let's continue. Number 5, South Dakota. Mount Rushmore might be carved in stone, but the housing market is built on quicksand. With 910,000 people spread across 77,000 square miles, this state has 11 people per square mile. That's not a housing market, that's a rounding error. The brutal mathematics are undeniable. Tourism provides seasonal employment for minimum wage workers who can't afford to buy homes anyway. Mining provides decent wages for a tiny workforce in remote locations where no one wants to live permanently. Agriculture requires massive land holdings that concentrate wealth in few hands while employing fewer people each year due to mechanization. Weather makes this state nearly uninhabitable for normal humans. Winters regularly hit -10 degrees with wind chills approaching -40. Summers bring golf ball-sized hail, tornadoes, and scorching heat over 90 degrees. The state averages 36 tornadoes annually. When Mother Nature actively tries to destroy your property every year, insurance becomes either unavailable or unaffordable. The demographic collapse is already underway. Young people leave for college and never return. The state's population growth rate is essentially zero when you exclude the small influx of retirees seeking low-cost living. But retirees don't buy expensive homes. They downsize or rent, putting additional pressure on home values. Infrastructure is crumbling due to extreme weather and a tiny tax base. Rural roads become impassable during winter storms. Cell phone coverage is spotty outside major towns. High-speed internet remains a luxury in many areas. When modern amenities become unavailable, property values collapse. The median home price of $280,000 seems affordable until you realize the median household income is only $63,000. Factor in heating costs averaging $2,700 annually, property taxes, insurance, and maintenance, and home ownership becomes financially impossible. Local banks privately admit they're increasingly reluctant to finance rural properties. But this state's struggles are nothing compared to the economic apocalypse brewing in our next location. Number 4, Montana. Big Sky Country is about to become Big Foreclosure Country. With 1.15 million people scattered across 147,000 square miles, that's fewer residents than San Antonio crammed into a space larger than Germany. The housing market operates on pure delusion. The median home price of $360,000 represents a complete disconnect from economic reality. The median household income hovers around $60,000, creating a price-to-income ratio that's mathematically unsustainable. But the real killer is the economy. Agriculture, tourism, and mining. 3 industries that are either seasonal, cyclical, or actively being destroyed by automation and environmental regulations. Grizzly bears aren't the biggest threat, it's the weather. Winters routinely hit negative 20 degrees in most of the state. Heating costs average $3,400 annually. Property insurance is skyrocketing due to wildfire risk. The state experiences major wildfires every single year, burning hundreds of thousands of acres. Insurance companies are either canceling policies or raising rates to levels that make homeownership impossible. Here's the demographic death spiral. The state attracts retirees seeking cheap living and young people seeking outdoor adventures. Retirees bring fixed incomes and eventually require expensive healthcare that can't be provided here. Young adventurers work seasonal jobs and leave when reality hits. Neither group builds a sustainable housing market. The infrastructure is 19th century quality trying to serve 21st century needs. Rural internet is dial-up speed. Cell coverage disappears outside major towns. Roads become impassable during winter storms that can last for weeks. When basic services become unreliable, property values crater. Local employment outside of agriculture and tourism is virtually non-existent. The state's largest city, Billings, has barely 100,000 residents. Economic diversification is impossible when your entire state has fewer people than most suburbs. Bank lending standards are tightening rapidly. Mortgage applications decreased 59% year over year. This state might seem isolated, but our next location takes isolation to terrifying extremes. Number 3, North Dakota. The Peace Garden state is about to experience economic warfare. With just 780,000 residents scattered across the frozen wasteland of the northern plains, the housing market depends entirely on one thing: oil prices. And oil is becoming an economic death sentence. The back in oil boom created a temporary housing bubble that's now collapsing in slow motion. When oil hit $150 per barrel, workers flooded in. Housing demand exploded. Prices skyrocketed. Now oil struggles to stay above $70, and the exodus has begun. Unlike previous oil busts, this one is permanent. Electric vehicles, renewable energy, and ESG investing are systematically destroying long-term oil demand. Fargo, the state's largest city, has barely 130,000 residents. That's smaller than most college campuses. The entire state has fewer restaurants than Manhattan has per square mile. When your largest urban center couldn't fill a medium-sized football stadium, economic growth becomes impossible. Winter temperatures regularly hit negative 30 degrees with wind chills approaching negative 60. The state averages over 60 inches of snow annually. Heating costs exceed $4,000 per year for average homes. When surviving winter requires mortgage payment-sized heating bills, homeownership becomes a luxury item. The demographic collapse is accelerating. Young people leave for college and never return. Oil workers are increasingly temporary contractors who live in man camps, not permanent residents who buy homes. The population that remains is aging rapidly, creating a death spiral where more people die than are born while younger generations flee. Agriculture provides some economic stability, but climate change is making farming increasingly risky. Extreme weather events are becoming more frequent and severe. Crop insurance costs are skyrocketing. When your backup economic engine is also failing, housing demand evaporates. Local banks report mortgage applications down 71% compared to the oil boom peak. But this oil-dependent economy looks stable compared to our next state's complete economic breakdown. Number 2, Wyoming. The equality state is about to experience equality in financial misery. With just 580,000 people scattered across 97,000 square miles, this state has 6 people per square mile. That's not a housing market, that's a statistical error. The economy is coal, oil, natural gas, and wishful thinking. Coal is dying faster than a canary in a coal mine. The federal government and state regulations are systematically destroying coal power plants. Natural gas prices are volatile and trending downward long-term due to renewable energy competition. Oil extraction is increasingly expensive compared to Texas and international sources. The median household income of $64,000 sounds decent until you realize the cost of living advantage is evaporating. Property taxes are rising to compensate for declining energy tax revenues. Utility costs are astronomical due to extreme weather and sparse population density. Insurance costs are skyrocketing due to severe weather events that include tornadoes, blizzards, and hailstorms. Cheyenne, the state capital and largest city, has barely 65,000 residents. That's smaller than most suburban shopping districts. Economic diversification is impossible when your entire state population couldn't fill a major university. Tech companies aren't relocating here. Manufacturing requires transportation infrastructure that doesn't exist. Tourism is seasonal and concentrated in small areas around Yellowstone. The demographic reality is terrifying. This state has the second lowest population density in America. Young people leave for college and never return. The population that remains is aging rapidly. Birth rates are below replacement level. When your population is literally shrinking, housing demand collapses by mathematical certainty. Weather makes year-round living nearly impossible for normal humans. Winter temperatures routinely hit negative 20 degrees. The state averages over 50 inches of snow annually. Wind speeds regularly exceed 40 miles per hour, creating wind chills that can kill exposed humans in minutes. Mortgage lenders are already requiring larger down payments for properties here. This energy-dependent economy looks diversified compared to our number 1 states, where even the government is planning to abandon it. Number 1, Alaska. The last frontier is becoming the last place anyone wants to live. With 740,000 people scattered across 663,000 square miles, this state has 1 person per square mile. This isn't a housing market. It's a geographic joke played on anyone foolish enough to buy property there. The housing market is collapsing faster than an ice shelf in global warming. Home sales plummeted 47% year over year according to Redfin data. The median home price of $325,000 represents complete economic insanity when the state's median household income is $75,000. But income statistics lie because most jobs are seasonal, temporary, or government dependent. The oil industry that built the economy is systematically being destroyed by federal environmental regulations, international competition, and the global transition to renewable energy. The Trans-Alaska Pipeline, which once employed thousands, now operates with skeleton crews. Oil tax revenues that fund state government are collapsing, forcing massive budget cuts to essential services. Here's the apocalyptic reality. The state has no state income tax or sales tax because oil revenues historically funded everything. As oil revenues disappear, the state faces 3 choices: implement massive new taxes, cut essential services to dangerous levels, or declare bankruptcy. All 3 options destroy property values and make home ownership financially impossible. Winter temperatures in much of the state regularly hit negative 40 degrees. Some areas experience 24 hours of darkness for months. Heating costs can exceed $6,000 annually. Groceries cost double mainland prices due to transportation costs. Internet service is expensive and unreliable. Medical care requires expensive flights to Seattle for anything serious. The demographic collapse is accelerating exponentially. Young people leave for college and never return. Military personnel serve temporary assignments and leave immediately. Oil workers are increasingly temporary contractors. The permanent population is aging rapidly, while birth rates plummet. Most terrifying, climate change is making coastal communities literally uninhabitable. Finding this breakdown useful? Hit subscribe for weekly market signals. Protect your wallet. Subscribe now and share this with anyone buying in 2025, especially in these high-risk states. And tell me, what are you seeing locally? Incentives, insurance spikes, buyers pulling back? Drop it in the comments.